Pag blamed me for the way it ended with Chelsea. Fair enough. I blamed him for the way it began. He'd gone into neuroeconomics, at least partly because his childhood buddy had turned into a pod person before his eyes. I'd ended up in synthesis for roughly the same reason. Our paths had diverged, and we didn't see each other in the flesh all that often. But 2 decades after I'd brutalised a handful of children on his behalf, Robert Paglino was still my best and only friend. You need to seriously thaw out, he told me. And I know just a lady to handle the oven mitts. That is perhaps the worst use of metaphor in the history of human language, I said. Seriously, Pod, she'll be good for you. A counterbalance. Ease you a bit closer to the comfy mean, you know. No, Pag, I don't. What is she? Another neuroeconomist? Neuroaestheticist, he said. There's still a market for those? I couldn't imagine how. Why pay to tweak your compatibility with some significant other, when significant others themselves were so out of fashion? Not much of one, Pag admitted. Fact is, she's pretty much retired. But she's still got all the tools, my man. Very thigmotactic. Likes all her relationships face to face and in the flesh. I don't know, Pag, sounds like work. Not like your work. She's got to be easier than the bleeding composites you front for. She's smart, she's sexy, and she's nicely inside the standard div, except for the personal contact thing, which is not so much outright perversion as a charming fetish. In your case, it could even be therapeutic. If I wanted therapy, I'd see a therapist. She does a bit of that too, actually. Yeah. And then, despite myself, any good? He looked me up and down. No one's that good. That's not what this is. I just figured you two would click. Chelsea is one of the few who might not be completely put off by your intimacy issues. Everyone's got intimacy issues these days, in case you hadn't noticed. He must have. The population had been dropping for decades. I was being euphemistic. I meant your aversion to general human contact. Making it euphemistic to call you human? He grinned. Different deal. We got history. No thanks. Too late. She's already en route to the appointed place. You're an asshole, Pag. The tightest. Which was how I found myself intrusively face to face in an airspace lounge south of Beth and Bear. The lighting was low and indirect, creeping from under the seats and edges of the tables. The chromatics, this afternoon at least, were defiantly long wave. It was a place where baselines could pretend to see in infrared, so I pretended for a moment, assessing the woman in the corner booth, gangly and glorious, 6 ethnicities coexisting peacefully with no single voice dominant. Something glowed on her cheek, a faint emerald staccato against the ambient redshift. Her hair floated in a diffuse ebony cloud about her head. As I neared, I caught occasional glints of metal within that nimbus, the threads of a static generator purveying the illusion of weightlessness. In normal light, her blood-red skin would doubtless shift down to the fashionable butterscotch of the unrepentant mongrel. She was attractive, but so was everyone in this kind of light. The longer the wavelength, the softer the focus. There's a reason fuck cubbies don't come with fluorescent lights. You will not fall for this, I told myself. Chelsea, she said. Her little finger rested on one of the table's inset trickle chargers. Former neuroaestheticist, presently a parasite on the body economic thanks to genes and machines on the cutting edge. The glow on her cheek flapped bright, lazy wings. A tattoo, a bioluminescent butterfly. Sorry, I said. Freelance synthesist, indentured servant to the genes and machines that turned you into a parasite. She waved at the empty seat. I took it, assessing the system before me, sizing up the best approach for a fast yet diplomatic disconnect. The set of her shoulders told me she enjoyed lightscapes and was embarrassed to admit it. Monaghan was her favourite artist. She thought herself a natural girl because she'd stayed on chemical libidinals all these years, even though a synaptic edit would have been simpler. She revelled in her own inconsistency, a woman whose professional machinery edited thought itself, yet mistrustful of the dehumanising impact of telephones. Innately affectionate, and innately afraid of unreturned affection, and indomitably unwilling to let any of that stop her. She liked what she saw when she looked at me. She was a little afraid of that too. Chelsea gestured at the side of my table. The touchpads there glowed soft, dissonant sapphire in the bloody light, like a set of splayed fingerprints. Good dope here, extra hydroxyl in the ring or something. Assembly line neurofarm doesn't do much for me. It's optimised for people with more meat in their heads. I fingered one of the pads for appearances and barely felt the tingle. So, a synthesist, explaining the incomprehensible to the indifferent. I smiled on cue. More like bridging the gap between the people who make the breakthroughs and the people who take the credit for them. She smiled back. So how do you do it? All those optimised frontal lobes and refits, I mean, if they're incomprehensible, how do you comprehend them? It helps to find pretty much everyone else incomprehensible too, provides experience. There, that should force a bit of distance. It didn't. She thought I was joking. I could see her lining up to push for more details, to ask questions about what I did, which would lead to questions about me, which would lead... Tell me what it's like, I said smoothly, rewiring people's heads for a living. Chelsea grimaced. The butterfly on her cheek fluttered nervously at the motion, wings brightening. God, you make it sound like we turn them into zombies or something. They're just tweaks mainly, changing taste in music or cuisine, you know, optimising mate compatibility, all completely reversible. There aren't drugs for that? Nah. Too much developmental variation between brains. Our targeting is really fine scale, but it's not all microsurgery and fried synapses, you know. You'd be surprised how much rewiring can be done non-invasively. You can start all sorts of cascades just by playing certain sounds in the right order, or showing images with the right balance of geometry and emotion. I assume those are new techniques? Not really. Rhythm and music hang their hats on the same basic principle. We just turned art into science. Yeah, but when? The recent past, certainly, sometime within the past 20 years or so. Her voice grew suddenly quiet. Robert told me about your operation. Some kind of viral epilepsy, right? Back when you were just a tyke? I'd never explicitly asked him to keep it a secret. What was the difference anyway? I'd made a full recovery. Besides, Pag still thought that had happened to someone else. I don't know your specifics, Chelsea continued gently, but from the sound of it, non-invasive techniques wouldn't have helped. I'm sure they only did what they had to. I tried to suppress the thought and I couldn't. I like this woman. I felt something then, a strange, unfamiliar sensation that somehow loosened my vertebra. The chair felt subtly, indefinably more comfortable at my back. Anyway, my silence had thrown her off stride. Haven't done it much since the bottom dropped out of the market, but it did leave me with a fondness for face-to-face encounters, if you know what I mean. Yeah, Pag said you took your sex in the first person. She nodded. I'm very old school. You okay with that? I wasn't certain. I was a virgin in the real world. One of the few things I still had in common with the rest of civilized society. In principle, I guess. It just seems a lot of effort for not as much payoff, you know. Don't I? She smiled. Real fuck buddies aren't airbrushed. Got all these needs and demands that you can't edit out. How can you blame anyone for saying no thanks to all that? Now there's a choice. You got to wonder how our parents ever stayed together sometimes. You got to wonder why they did. I felt myself sinking deeper into the chair. Wondered again at the strange new sensation. Chelsea had said that the dopamine was tweaked. That was probably it. She leaned forward, not coy, not coquettish, not breaking eye contact for an instant in the long wave gloom. I could smell the lemony tang of pheromones and synthetics mingling on her skin. But there are advantages too once you learn the moves, she said. The body's got a long memory, and you do realise that there's no trickler under your left finger there, don't you, Siri? I looked. My left arm was slightly extended, index finger touching one of the trickle pads, and my right had mirrored the motion while I wasn't watching, its own finger tapping uselessly on the blank tabletop. I pulled it back. Bit of a bilateral twitch, I admitted. The body creeps into symmetrical poses when I'm not looking. I wait for a joke, or at least a raised eyebrow. Chelsea just nodded and resumed her thread. So if you're game for this, so am I. I've never been entangled with a synthesist before. Jargonaut's fine. I'm not proud. Don't you just always know exactly what to say? She cocked her head at me. So your name? What's it mean? Relaxed. That was it. I felt relaxed. I don't know. It's just a name. Well, it's not good enough. If we're going to be swapping spit for any length of time, you've got to get a name that means something. And we were, I realised. Chelsea had decided while I wasn't looking. I could have stopped her right there, told her what a bad idea this was, apologised for any misunderstanding, but then there would be wounded looks and hurt feelings and guilt, because after all, if I wasn't interested, why the hell had I even shown up? She seemed nice. I didn't want to hurt her. Just for a while, I told myself. It'll be an experience. I think I'll call you Cygnus, Chelsea said. The Swan? I said, a bit precious, but it could have been worse. She shook her head. Black hole, Cygnus X1. I furrowed my brow at her, but I knew exactly what she meant, a dark, dense object that sucks up the light and destroys everything in its path. Thanks a whole fucking lot. Why? I'm not sure. Something dark about you, she shrugged and gave me a great toothy grin, but it's not unattractive. And let me give you a tweak or two. I bet you'd grow right out of it. Pag admitted afterward, a bit sheepishly, that maybe I should have read that as a warning sign. Live and learn.